Much we don't know about this morning's gospel. We know there were two disciples. We don't know whether they were male or female. We know one of them was called Cleopas. And we know that they were walking towards a village called Emmaus, which was 7 miles from Jerusalem, although nobody's really clear about what Emmaus actually means, the name, or where it is. But on the road, these two, tempted to say lockdown dodgers, but that would be putting back into the past what's happening now. These two people just met somebody else on the road, and they didn't know who he was. In fact, the Bible tells us that God prevented them from recognizing. For whatever reason, they didn't recognize Jesus, and they told him about their problems, their pain. They talked about what was wrong in their lives, and these two couldn't understand why does this guy not know what's been going on? Has he not been reading the newspapers? Has he not been following the internet or what? Of course, I'm reading back again into the past. But the thing that everybody was talking about was Jesus, all the hopes that people had placed in Jesus's life, so bitterly and cruelly brought to an end in his death. In a sense, these two people were in mourning. Because I remember years ago somebody defining mourning to me, a bereavement, as being the loss of a planned future. Bereavement is the loss of a planned future. That's why bereavement is so much harder to cope with, and of course it's never easy. But it's so much harder to cope with when it's the loss of say, a child. Because we make our plans, we kind of think, well, sooner or later, me and my wife, one of us will go. And of course, in our heads, we always think, well, it's going to be me first. But that's how we plan. And bereavement is when we realize that all our plans have been shattered and we've lost that planned future that we had. And so they talk with this mysterious stranger, and he remonstrates with them. He says, how foolish you are and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have declared. It's really interesting, that combination, I think, of Jesus walking with them. He doesn't stand in front of them and say, no, don't go any further. Stop right there. He walks with them, but at the same time, he points out where they're going wrong. They know the prophecies. They know that it's necessary that the Messiah should suffer and then enter into glory. And we're told that Jesus, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, interpreted to them all the things about himself in all the scriptures. And so passionate was he, and so engaging in what he was saying, that they want him to stay with them. They say, don't head off, just come with us. We want to talk some more. It's almost evening, and the day is now nearly over. So Jesus goes in to stay with them. So they're obviously understanding now there is something special about this person they're talking to. There's somebody they want to be with, but they still don't recognize Jesus. And finally, of course, when they are at table together, he takes bread, blesses it, and breaks it, and gives it to them. And as he does so, their eyes were opened, and they recognized Jesus. Then at that precise moment, we're told he vanished from their sight. The risen Christ does share food with his disciples. He does allow them to touch him. But again and again, he proves to be elusive. Remember when he meets Mary Magdalene in the garden, he says, don't hold me because I've not yet ascended to my Father. He appears to the disciples in that locked room. And here he vanishes as soon as they recognize him. It's almost like he's got to be somewhere else. He's got other things to be doing. And Jesus, remember, appeared to so many people, of over 500, we're told by St. Paul, at one time. And yet Jesus remains elusive. But Here's the good news for us today. In lockdown, in isolation, wherever we may be, Jesus can meet with us wherever we are. We're told that the disciples' hearts burned within them when they read the scriptures. So that's one sign if Jesus is with you. When you're reading the Bible and it's not dull and it's not boring and it's not irrelevant, and you read the words of Scripture and they actually apply to your life here and now, Jesus is with you. And Jesus is with us in the breaking of the bread. Sadly, we can't meet together as the family of God at the moment, but I really look forward to sharing the Eucharist again with you in church. But when we take the bread and the wine, I always feel we're preparing ourselves for that final meeting when we will all meet again in heaven, when we will really be with Jesus and we'll know his presence. I just want to leave you with a final thought this morning, which is something I've read so many times at funerals. People ask for it, and sometimes I'm like, oh, not again. That poem about footprints. It's not a poem, really. It's a meditation. It's a thought. But it's a very significant and I believe a very profound thought. When we are worried about the future, when we're suffering that bereavement, that loss of a planned and perhaps shared future, then that is the time to look back. Look back as Jesus did with his disciples on that whole history of God and his people, but also looking back on our personal history, where God has worked in our lives. I hope you'll take some time to just reflect on where God has been working in your life, where God has been present in Jesus Christ in perhaps some very difficult times in your past, and maybe just now as well. And when you do so, I hope that will calm some of your fears about the future. Until we meet again, God bless you.